A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you all to the India Coal Summit, started way back in 2007. We take pride in announcing that we have reached our 16th year. This summit over the years have become one of the most important and prominent platform of the industry. We will start the program now. We are really happy to have with us our chief guest, Srimati Rupinder Brar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal, Government of India. I would request Madam to kindly come to the dais, and I request you all to welcome her with a big round of applause. I would request Mr. Kapil Dhagat, Head of Mining JSPL, to kindly join us. A big round of applause for Mr. Dhagat. Now I would request Mr. Pankaj Satija, Chairperson of the ICC National Expert Committee on Minerals and Metals, to join us. Let us welcome him with a big round of applause. He has been the backbone of the minerals and metals sector at ICC. Mr. Animesh Jain, CEO of NTPC, he is on his way and he will join us any moment. So we will not waste any more time because we are already late. And now I would request Mr. Satija to kindly welcome our guests.
Good morning. Chief guest of this program, Srimati Rupinder Brar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal, Mr. Kapil Dhagat, Head Mining, Jindal Steel and Power, and all the dignitaries of the days. I am reminded of one story of Gautam Buddha, that once upon a time, a person went to Gautam Buddha and asked, "What is my life worth?" Gautam Buddha gave him one shining stone and told him to find the value. And he told him not to sell. So first he went to a orange seller, and then he gave that shining stone to the orange seller and asked, "How much you will give me?" He told, "I'll give you 12 oranges for that." Then he went to a vegetable seller. Vegetable seller told, "I'll give you 1 sack of potatoes." Then he went to a goldsmith. Goldsmith told that, "I'll give you 100 gold coins." And at the end he went to a diamond merchant. And diamond merchant told that, "I can give you my shop. You give me that stone." So when I look at coal, it again depends on the value who is deriving out of it. So coal, coking coal, we have a thermal coal and coking coal. And then in today's time, coal gasification, coal to liquid, methanol. So each one is deriving value out of how it can be more useful in that. And if you see the history of it, a gas light was developed in 1790s by William Murdoch. And in London, it was Frederick Winsor who street lighted that area with coal-based light. From 1790s to this day, coal has seen lot many changes, lot many development. And if you look at India also, primarily Indian Railway was the coal producer and the coal transporter in the Damodar area. And that time, the differentiation of coking coal and thermal coal was not there. Later on, it started changing and people started knowing more and more value out of it. And today we see the different changes and the different. In media also, if you have seen last few years, there used to be one liner we used to run in the national TV, that only 4 days coal left in all thermal power plant. And that used to run for 7 days. So this is the work which coal miners have done, that today if you are having this program in this hall is because of somewhere the coal was mined, and that was giving power to the electricity. So India is blessed that it is the fifth largest reserve of coal, and the total coal reserve as on 1/4/2023 is 378 billion ton, and lignite 47.36 billion ton. Coking coal also 35.46, and production also 832.31 million ton with a growth of 14.57%. So I don't think many other industry will be having this impressive growth rate. Coal, which is also 55% of country energy need, and thermal power plant actually electricity is around 70 to 75%. However, per capita commercial energy consumption in India is much lower, 350 kgoe per year, and it has a higher potential to go upward. Coal also stands as single largest contributor to railway freight. 49% of total freight income amounting to rupees 82,275 crore in 2023. And that's why if you see freight to fare ratio in India is close to 0.39, which is more than one in many countries like Germany and Japan. So if you are traveling in Indian railways at a much subsidized rate, it is because of the coal transportation. Government of India in recent past has come out with many policies: Shakti, coal gasification, production from abandoned mines, lot many initiatives on ease of doing business. And one area which has been a focus point for many years that also has been given thrust, how we can increase production from underground mines. And these policies are also giving results at the ground. So if you see the coal production from captive and commercial mines, which was 52.70 in 14-15, is now 122.7 in 2022-23, which is a growth rate of 132%. But there are other implications of coal mine also. We all know the carbonization and how we are getting lot many flack from other quarters. So if you see CO2 concentration in atmosphere, it was 422 ppm in 2023, which is 50% higher than what it was before Industrial Revolution. So Indian companies, Indian government, both are working on just transition, justice for transition, and there are many such initiatives which are being taken to ensure restorative justice, to take care of what has been done wrong in the past, distributive justice, so that whatever the stakeholders which are at disadvantaged stage are getting due recognition or due share in just transition, and procedural justice, that how we are defining and doing it. So while there are lot many negative news which comes for coal, but it is the coal miner who are making this journey of urbanization, which I told, the London gas lamp with the street lighting and to the industrial evolution. And when we talk about industry 4.0, when we are talking about importance of critical minerals, we must not forget how coal has contributed in industry 1.0 with steam engines. So with this, I always feel that whatever the good work of the miners in Coal India and coal companies somehow get negated with the challenges what we see in today's time. It reminds me of a famous couplet of Dr. Rahat Indori, कि मेरे हुजरे में नहीं कहीं और पर रख दो, आसमान लाए हो ज़मीन पर रख दो, अब कहाँ ढूंढने जाओगे हमारे कातिल, आप तो कत्ल का इल्ज़ाम हम ही पर रख दो. So these are the challenges which coal miners face, but in spite of that, I feel that they are the one who are the backbones of industrial revolution and is still contributing for Indian economy, either through the tax amount what they pay, the royalty what they pay, they contribute to the Indian railways, and I'm sure that coal is going to stay for a longer time. At least Niti Aayog report says that coal production use will peak somewhere around 2035-40, then it will taper. But as we say that Stone Age is over, it doesn't mean that we are not using the stone. So when coal age will be over, it will not be like that coal will not be used. Coal will have its own value, as I mentioned earlier, coal to liquid, coal to methanol, coal gasification. The form will change, but coal will be there for Indian economy in time to come. With this backdrop, I welcome Srimati Rupinder Barar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal, for her presence and the valuable insight she is going to share with us. I also welcome Sri Kapil Dhagat, Head Mining, Jindal Steel and Power Limited, who is known for his expertise in coal, and he has been throughout in the coal area, right from Coal India, SCCL to now in JSPL. And I welcome all of you who are here, and friends from media and ICC office bearer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Satija. Always a pleasure hearing you. And now I would request our next speaker, Mr. Kapil Dhagat, Head of Mining JSPL, to address us.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Brar ma'am, and the dignitaries and colleagues sitting off the dais. Many known faces here. We keep on meeting each other at various forums and various meetings, and beyond that also. So, as rightly said by Mr. Satija, that coal is not a forgotten story. And I would say that a few years back, and we were just discussing before this meeting, that there was a strong sentiment to say goodbye to coal. Discourage coal-based investments. Bankers were also shying away, and they were not supporting the projects. World was getting ready for the transition quickly to other forms of energy sources. Researches are going on, hydrogen and many other fields. But later on, post the pandemic, there was a realization that this will take time, and such steps are premature, and world is not ready with efficient and cost-effective alternatives. Countries like Turkey, Germany, and some of the Eastern European countries, they are still continuing, and some of the countries, they have shifted back to thermal power stations. Germany has revived certain power stations to continue the supply of power to the countryman, because there was a crisis because of supply of gas from Russia. Almost 15 to 16% gas was supplied from Russia that was disrupted. So these are the reasons that they have again revived back some of the power stations. The countries like Poland, now they are thinking to install more power stations in the country, coal-based. And basically the dependence on coal will continue, and this will be a major hub for India and Southeast Asia. We will be depending on coal. Indian story is different. We have been depending on coal, and we will continue to depend on coal. So thank you ICC for organizing this conference. This is very topical. The subjects like coal production, import of coal, and sustainable mining practices and technological innovations are included. And I hope this conference will bring out strong recommendations for the policy changes. Thank you ICC for inviting me also for exchanging my views on this. So I will start with this, that India is smartly marching towards its goal to become 5 trillion economy. We have taken very strong steps in various directions. Coal plays and will play a major role in supporting the growth, and we can proudly say that we are second largest coal producer in the world by way behind China, which is number 1. We are targeting to produce 1,500 million ton of coal in the coming years. We have already crossed 1 BT. We possess 378 billion ton of coal, 5th largest coal resource in the world, which is sufficient to boost the country's economy by but everything is not mineable. So out of this 378 billion ton of coal, I am expecting that something around 80 to 90 million ton is economically mineable by open cast and underground means. And as per the estimates that this will continue for another 80 to 90 years or maybe 100 years depending on the coal productions with the current production targets. And the area of concern here is that most of the recently planned mines are open cast mines, and almost 96 to 97% is being mined by open cast mines, and very less, about 4 to 5% is being mined by underground mines. The major reasons of this subdued activity in this field is the higher cost of mining by underground methods, lower grades of coal not justifying the investments, lack of incentives in the underground mining that I will discuss, and import dependence for underground mining equipment. This is a very serious issue that for any mine, underground mine, we need so many equipment like continuous miner, longwall equipment, or any kind of sophisticated equipment to determine the gas and monitoring systems. So we are not making all these equipment here. I request through this forum that Ministry of Coal must promote underground mining wherever techno-economically possible by giving more incentives like rebate on revenue share similar to coal gasification. In coal gasification, we are getting 50% rebate on the revenue share. So similar kind of thing should also be here to promote underground mining so that we can tap the better grade of reserves. Similarly, waiver of import duty on imported equipment, that should be there so that there is less burden on the investors. Encourage mining machinery manufacturing in India so that we can manufacture more equipment in India, like Caterpillar has also already started making continuous miners. Then also waiver of NPV on the forest land. This is also putting a burden on the underground investors. And we also, we should invite the manufacturers to India to manufacture here under Make in India scheme. So this is how we can promote underground coal mining, and we can get the better grade of coal which can replace the import of substitutable grade of coal, and this will basically reduce the import exchequer also and burden on the foreign exchange. So this is how we can do that. Then when we used to study mining engineering basics, so this is another topic which I want to touch upon. We studied various books from UK, USA and from Australia. There was a talk about the development of integrated mining complex. And that recommended to create large coal mining complexes consisting of clustered mining with development of common infrastructure and common coal evacuation hubs. It has many advantages like lower capital investment, less land degradation by optimizing the land requirement, less R&R, and utilization of voids of adjacent mines for overburden dumping. India has such opportunity, and ministry can help in framing such supporting regulatory framework to encourage such type of mining which is sustainable and eco-friendly. To meet the CMDPA challenges, coal evacuation arrangement can be made in such a way that the payment of revenue share and other statutory duties are not impacted for the declared grades. Such steps will go in a long way to support investors who have 2 or more mining leases in the vicinity adjoining areas. With government continued impetus for giving importance for the infrastructure sector by way of huge allocation of 11.1 lakh crore, which is 11% more than the previous year, it is quite evident that such an ambitious plan will give boost to the core sector like steel, cement, power, aluminium, etc., which will in turn trigger the energy demand, and which is actually happening. Post-COVID, we have seen that despite the increase in the production of coal, there has been a demand that still we are finding a gap. And if we see the figures, as Mr. Satija has told, there has been a growth, double-digit growth in Coal India production, but in commercial coal mines and the captive coal mines, we have registered a growth more than 30%, 32%, and maximum was 36%. This is really encouraging, and I hope that we'll be able to achieve the targets much more earlier, and the target of 250 million ton by captive and commercial will be achieved much earlier. To support infrastructure development in the country, coal mining and other minerals play a crucial role in supporting manufacturing in the country and reducing costly imports. Both steel and mining are having 2% to 2.5% of GDP and employ 38 lakh people across India. Similarly, aluminium, renowned for its versatility, is significant in the manufacturing sector, contributing approximately 2% of India's overall manufacturing GDP. So why I am bringing this point here? Because this growth, these sectors, basically these are non-regulated sectors, they are bringing the growth to India, increase in the GDP, but they are not supported well by the supply of coal under the coal linkages policies. Preference is always given to the power sector, and in terms of the supply of linkage coal under the fuel supply agreements, the non-regulated sectors, which are basically contributing a lot to the India's growth story, are neglected. This is about 6,500 rakes which are pending for the supply, and these rakes are getting lapsed. And the non-regulated sector is basically bound to import coal, which should not happen. Now I'll come to the steel sector. I would commend the steel producers for the continued efforts in making India the second largest producer of steel, only behind China. China is the world's largest crude steel producer, 1019 million ton of steel, crude steel. India is 140 million tons currently, Japan 87, and so on. The world crude steel production reached 1892 million tons against production capacity of 2459. So means once there is an allocation of infrastructure, 11.1 lakh crore in the country, we are also expecting that there will be a boost to the steel production. And for steel, we need coking coal. So I'll come to that aspect, and fortunately myself and Mr. Pankaj Satija, we have been the members, leading members of Mission Coking Coal, and that document is already available with Ministry of Coal, and that is being implemented gradually. We have taken certain very strong steps to promote the production of coking coal in the country, but there are certain challenges which I will discuss. So, as far as the coking coal production is concerned, we are producing about 54 to 55 million ton of coking coal in the country, and unfortunately most of this chunk is being supplied to the power sector. This is a very big setback, having such a large resource of coking coal, but we are not able to utilize in our steel industry, and we are importing coal. Almost 55 to 65 million ton of coking coal is being imported from various countries like Canada, Australia, US, and even from Russia. What should be done? The basic issue why we are not able to use, number one, is the quality of Indian coking coal, which needs washing. So we must install state-of-the-art coal beneficiation plants, the washeries in India, so that we can wash this coal, maybe washery grade 2 to washery grade 6. So depending on the quality of the feed coal, we must install washeries with applicable technology. We should wash this coal, and whatever is the yields, maybe 20%, 25%, that should be supplied to the steel industry, and the middling and the rejects. Rejects can't be used directly, but the middling can be used for the generation of power, captive power plants. So considering this aspect, Ministry of Coal is working on this direction, and few tenders have been floated to give the old Coal India washeries, which are not running currently, to the private sector, so that they can develop these washeries and increase the wash coal production. Similarly, they have also come out with a linkage policy for 15 years to supply the coking coal from the areas of BCCL and CCL, and they are encouraging the private sector to install coal washeries near to these mines. And for that, there has been an amendment in the CBA, Coal Bearing Areas Act, that you can utilize the space available in the disused areas of the coal mine, and you can install the coal washeries there. You can wash the coal, take it to your steel plant, and but there are certain setbacks, like the current policy says that you cannot sell the middling. You have to use the middlings in the captive power plant. But if someone is having captive power plant 500 to 600 kilometers away, it becomes very difficult, and it is not economic. It does not make any economic sense to bring those middlings of 3000 GCV to 600 kilometers and utilize for the power stations. So we have requested Ministry of Coal to allow selling of such kind of middlings similar to the rejects. There has been a policy for rejects, so similar policy should be made. Now, what is the current demand? With the above production reaching 210 to 220 million ton of crude steel, as per the national steel policy, the target was 300 million ton of crude steel by 2030. But we are estimating that considering the current growth, we will be able to achieve about 220 million ton of coal. So this will require about 135 to 140 million ton of coking coal. So out of that, we have got very less capacity available to wash the coal, and the target is to make about 65 million ton of coking coal washing capacity in India, so that we can substitute the import of coal. And there has been a shift from the blast furnace BOF route towards the DRI route. In India, it is also happening. We are also resorting to the gasification route. We gasify the coal. In Jindal Steel and Power, we have got a very large gasification plant, which supports about 2 million ton of DRI plant. We are washing the indigenously available coal from Mahanadi Coalfields Limited. We are washing it and we are supplying to the gasification plant. The syngas produced from the gasification plant is used in DRI plant to reduce the iron ore, Fe2O3. And then this is how we are building our capacities. More such gasification units are being added. So there could be a shift. Currently, the blast furnace and DRI route proportion is about 46 to 54%. And we are thinking that if well supported by the policies, as we have seen that there has been rebate 50% on the gasification, we can increase the share of DRI. Now the challenge is only to go for the CCUS so that we can capture the carbon dioxide and we can also utilize that. So research is happening in that direction, and if it is found economical, this will happen. Now, as far as the India's coking coal production, future growth and all that, so in that mission coking coal addresses that we should explore more coal blocks, bring more reserves, and then we can plan large capacity mines. There are certain issues with the rehabilitation resettlement in the Jharia coalfield also, so that has also been addressed in the mission coking coal. And as far as the alternative steel production, that I have already discussed, that we have got gasification technology available. We can supply gas to make steel, crude steel, as well as the DRI. And we have seen that with the international coal, and if we compare with the current domestic coal prices, making DRI through the syngas route is cheaper, and there is a huge difference. Still, I think there is a difference of 4,000 to 5,000 rupees per ton of crude steel. So that should encourage the investment in the DRI sector through gasification. So this is how we can progress in this direction. Now, there has been investments. Ministry of Steel is also encouraging to acquire mines abroad. We have taken coal mines in Mozambique. These are semi-hard coking coal mines. We are producing about 50 million tons. The mine capacity is huge. Even the washery capacity is matching 50 million ton of coal washing capacity in Mozambique. And we are bringing that semi-hard coking coal washed from Mozambique to India. So there has been an effort to make investments outside and be independent on that aspect. Similar practices are being adopted by other companies to explore and acquire more mines abroad in Australia. So this is how we can progress in this direction. So it is evident by the above facts and figures that the Indian steel producers are migrating towards more efficient utilization of the indigenous coal and keep on working to save the environment by taking up more and more reduction in carbon footprints. Indian steel producers have managed their steel production by utilizing Indian thermal coal and DRI production. Also, Indian steel producers are inclined towards gas-based DRI, which I have already told, taking advantage of the incentives put in by place. And also there has been a thrust by giving the viability gap funding of 8,500 crore rupees, which will help in the investment of such kind of projects. So three categories have already been made. Category 1 is for the government companies, category 2 for the government and the private companies, and category 3 has been made up to 100 crores of investment for research-based projects. Indian steel producers are dependent on imports of better grade of non-coking coal, also from South Africa and Australia. So what we can do, we have got better grade of coal available in the subsidiaries like ECL, CCL, and some parts of SECL. If we allocate that kind of coal under the linkage scheme or under the fuel supply agreements for the steel sector only, and if we wash it to 10%, then it becomes a substitutable PCI also, which we are importing from Australia and Russia. So I would like to conclude by saying that by looking at very nature of coking coal price, Indian steel industry have adapted very well to cope up with ever-changing fluctuations in the coking coal prices. With a little more push and hand-holding by the government and Ministry of Coal, this can be further improved. I would also like to request the distinguished guests present here to push the authority for earmarking more budget, incentivize mining, explore more and efficiently utilize the mineral asset to ensure that our dependency on imports are greatly reduced. That is the target of Government of India, because we have got sufficient resources available, and we can do some brainstorming, and I hope this conference will do such kind of brainstorming and bring out suitable recommendations which can be sent to Ministry of Coal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dhagat, for such an insightful deliberation. And now I would request our next speaker, Mr. Animesh Jain, CEO, NTPC Mining, to kindly address the gathering.
Chief guest of the day, Ma'am Rupinder Parar, Additional Secretary and Nominated Authority, Ministry of Coal, Government of India. My distinguished guests on the dais, off the dais, and participants, organizers of this conference. A very good morning, and with this, I think we are discussing the mainstay of Indian energy, that is coal, which is going to energize us towards the Viksit Bharat. It is my privilege to address this august gathering with leaders and experts in the coal sector, and I thank Indian Chamber of Commerce to have given me this opportunity to address this forum of Indian coal mining leaders. It is heartening to note that an apt topic has been chosen in the opening session, that is coal reserves, production, and the future outlook. There is absolutely no debate while admitting that coal remains the most vital and cheapest resources of India's energy independence ambitions. It would be the key towards realization of our vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. If we see post-COVID in last 3 years, the energy or power demand in India has shown a remarkable growth with year-on-year growth of around 7%. Comparing it to the world energy standards growth over the last 5 to 7 years, we are practically moving at double the speed in India. In May of 2024, we had a peak demand of 250 gigawatts of power, which was successfully met because of our coal productions. As per the estimates prepared by Central Electricity Authority, the peak demand is going to touch 366 gigawatts by 2032, with an annual projected growth rate of over 5%. Accordingly, there is a need to have coal production to service additional 80 gigawatts of coal-based plants which are going to be set up in next 7 to 9 years. This shall culminate into a demand of 1.4 billion tons of non-coking coal by FY32. For energy Atmanirbharta, the first target for the coal sector today remains to substitute coal imports. Despite having 200 billion tons of proven coal reserves, India imported 261 million tons of coal, which includes 200 odd tons of non-coking coal in the last fiscal, resulting in an outflow of 4 lakh crore rupees. Now this is, if we see, 3 times the annual revenues of our largest coal mining company in India, Coal India. Indian coal industry is rapidly evolving, with the most significant development being the entry of captive and commercial coal mining companies like the one I represent, NTPC Mining Limited. From a mere 61 million metric ton of production in 2021, the production from the captive and coal mining is set to cross 170 million metric ton this year, with a CAGR of over 25% in last 4 years and contributing to almost 15% of the country's coal production. So this is a game changer. NTPC, the leading power generating company which I represent, has also emerged a key player in captive mining, and in the last fiscal we produced almost 34.4 million metric ton of coal with an impressive CAGR of over 50% in last 5 years. NTPC Group has a current capacity of around 91 odd million metric tons of per annum coal mines from its 9 coal blocks. We participated in the coal auctions, and last year we won the first commercial coal block, North Dadu East, via auction route. Our key mantra is mining for Atmanirbharta, and fueling NTPC will in turn powers the nation towards a growth. For focused approach in the coal mining, we have already incorporated NTPC Mining Limited, and all the mines have now been vested to NTPC Mining Limited by Ministry of Coal. Here I would also like to thank Ministry of Coal for its path-breaking initiatives, which has led to production of almost 1 billion ton of coal in the last fiscal. I still remember the days post-COVID, ma'am, you may like to take a note of it, that one of the leading political figures in the country had commented that coal is what oxygen was in the COVID times. So we have come out of that crisis situation with enhancement of production both by Coal India as well as the captive miners. While undertaking various reforms towards liberalization of the coal industry, MOC has been keeping a watchful eye on environmental and sustainable development aspects. This is evident from the recent draft mining plan and mine closure guidelines which were issued in July 2024, which has not only focused on the land reclamation but also the socio-economic impacts of mine closure, whereby a corpus of 10% has been earmarked to be deposited in the escrow accounts for for the final closure. Land repurposing for the installation of solar plants. Coal is perceived to be a dirty fuel. So I think we need to take a policy initiative, ma'am, in NTPC, since we are the power generating company and a leading player in the renewable space. We have been requesting that this land repurposing for solar is made a reality. Pump storage projects, gasification projects, washeries, etc., have been proposed as minor modifications to the mining plan, and policy for leasing out CBA land for such projects has also been introduced. The initiative of star ratings of mines, which benchmark the coal mines not only for production and safety, but also on the aspects of R&R, coal quality, worker welfare, and adoption of latest green and sustainable technologies. I would request that a mining index may be conceptualized, ranking various mineral-rich states with respect of ease of doing business and best practices adopted in the coal mine. It can be introduced even at the district levels, which are rich in coal reserves in future, and would promote competitiveness amongst the local communities vying for the coal projects in their area. Additionally, it will also lead to some kind of competitiveness amongst the mineral-rich state. All these steps will go a long way in creating a framework of sustainable coal mining in India, harnessing its available resources to the fullest. In the coming year, how we transport our coal in an eco-friendly and cost-effective manner is going to play an important role in the coal industry. MOC has already launched a coal logistic policy and an integrated coal logistic plan in February this year. We must devise a strategy of giving right of way to rail, roads, and first mile evacuation as part of the mining allocation process. 38 road connectivity projects critical to the coal sector have already been identified under the energy corridor. Fast tracking of these are going to change the coal logistic transport scenario in the country. Further, with the rise in domestic coal production levels beyond 1 billion ton and opening of more commercial coal mines, price dynamics is expected to play a significant role in the sector. It will warrant a need for transparency and a platform which can take coal trading beyond term linkages and bring all buyers and sellers together. I propose we should work towards setting up of a coal exchange, the way we set up the power exchange. In this regard, I think some thinking is already underway. We never know, it may provide
if you analyze the recent tenders on firm and dispatchable renewable energy, the per unit cost has dropped to 4 rupees and 38 paise. And many experts, they argue that the round the clock renewable has already become cheaper than the new coal based power. But this transition from coal to renewable is not without challenges. Grid stability is one challenge. For large scale power plant, land is another challenge, and it is the same challenge what coal is also facing just now, based on our previous speakers. So to achieve 500 gigawatt of renewable power by 2030, we are right now at 200 gigawatt. So 50 gigawatt per year we have to install next 6 years, and we have never crossed 20 gigawatt. So that is huge thing to achieve. While the energy transition continues to happen, what we as an organization feel that coal is here to stay beyond 2050, but it would be on hard to abate sector. The sector like power, it has to decarbonize before 2050 if we want to achieve 2070 net zero commitment. Various green coal initiatives were talked previously in this panel also. Couple of panelists will be talking, I think Mr. Tushar will be talking about it. So whether it is coal gasification, whether it is methane extraction, all these are just to increase the efficiency of utilization of coal, but not the complete decarbonization. Without carbon capture and utilization, storage is out of the discussion. Many reports have come in India and globally that storage of carbon is not good, and so carbon capture and utilization is one way forwarded for decarbonization of coal. But again, will it be cheaper than the new renewable with the storage? Will once you install, because technology itself is under development, whenever we have this particular technology, will the cost of it, economics will work? We don't know. So right now, as we phase out the coal and transition into renewable, we are at the trilemma. At one side, we need to keep developing and we need energy for it. At one side, we need to supply low cost power to our industry as well as the population. And one side, we have to deal the climate change. So in this trilemma, we don't have an option, many options. So we have to transition from coal to renewables, and based on our findings, based on the recent tenders, we know that it is the renewables with storage round the clock power, already it is cheaper than the new power plant to make. So with this, this session, we have 3 speakers. Mr. Tushar Chakravarti, he is from Deloitte, and he will be talking about various aspects of this transition, including the green coal initiatives. So I would like to call Mr. Tushar to start the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Dr. Tiwari, and thanks to Indian Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good afternoon. Well, as he has already set the context, in next 10 minutes, I'll try to cover something related to energy transition and technological innovation in coal sector. And I'll try to make it as interesting as possible because, you know, we are talking about a lot of stuffs today and they are typically pole apart, because while we are talking about renewable at one side, we're talking about coal on the other side, we're talking about energy transition on the third side. At the bottom of it, the main fundamental which lies is how are we addressing the energy transition. So let me start with the global trend first, and let me give you an overall snapshot of how things work globally. So there are four major trends which are happening globally. The first thing is declining role of hydrocarbons. The second is rapid expansion in renewable. Third is increasing electrification and growing use of low carbon hydrogen. I think in some way or the other we have covered these points in the previous sessions, but the overall point is that this is going to be the trend, that definitely fossil fuel is going to come down globally. And as we go ahead, we see that there are a lot of global emission norms which are becoming stringent as we proceed. We have all heard of carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM, and we have heard of what China is doing. There are a lot of initiatives in India. There are a lot of initiatives in US as well. So everything is boiling down to one point, that how much is your carbon emission, and typically when you talk about a coal business or a thermal power business, the first thing which is coming in our mind is, okay, we are definitely talking about something which is one of the sources and to be addressed. With that point, I would also like to take your attention to what is the kind of global number in terms of the overall carbon CO2 emission equivalent. So this number was hovering around 31-32 gigatons in the year 2022, and the three major industry which is contributing to it is, first is power, second industry, third is transport. And if you talk about power sector only, it's contributing almost half of it. So that's definitely one area to address. The second point was that this entire discussion, Howard sometime way back in 2010, when the point came up that, okay, how do we address it? The one point was that obviously we need to look at the global emissions, we need to address the global warming. So the overall target which was taken that time was between 2010 to 2030, we will reduce 45%, which will give a result of reducing 1.5 degrees of overall target of the global warming, which can come down. So that was the kind of number which was hovering. But the major concern is how India is playing into all these things. The way India is playing is, out of this 31-32 gigawatt which I was just now mentioning, India is almost 8% contributor to this. However, in terms of per capita consumption, we are somewhere like 110. So there are two angles of looking at it. Should you look at it from absolute angle, or you should look at it from per capita consumption? When you talk about per capita number, you also need to look at China. In case of China, this number is somewhat different. China is like 28. It's almost 8.2 versus India, which is 1.74 tons of per capita consumption. That's the kind of number which we are talking about. So make it apple to apple. When we are talking about US and we are talking about all these kind of numbers, we do believe that there is definitely one very important thrust, very important push which is required at our country level. And to give you a better glimpse of it, India is doing pretty well. When we talk about our country and the kind of initiatives which have been taken up in last 10 years, there are multiple things which have popped up. And definitely when we will talk about G20 summit, we know that India was ranked 8th as per the Climate Change Performance Index in 2023. So there are all good indicators that we are on track. And there is definitely, it's not that we are only talking about future, we are already witnessing it, all this kind of transformation. So now let me try to relate this entire concept to India and to coal sector. So while we are talking about coal sector, the first thing is how do we look at the power sector? Well, we look at this power consumption in our country. We are talking about 2023 number, which was around 1621 BUs. Well, it is growing at a 4.55% CAGR, and it's expected to grow at a 6% CAGR because we are progressing pretty fast. So this number will be hovering somewhere like 2,451 BUs by 2030, which is kind of a realistic scenario. There are some optimistic scenarios as well. But if I talk only with the realistic scenario, and if I typically try to correlate it with the kind of consumption trend we have, so you can see that in the green highlighted portion, it is basically the one which is coming from renewable sources, and the gray is basically coming from the coal-based generation. So there is a substantial portion from coal-based generation. As we were hearing in the previous session that some of the coal miners are really getting into a lot of promises in terms of the kind of production which is coming up in the country. So how do you basically try to portray this entire thing? I would like to relate to the same point which my dear friend Praveen was mentioning in the previous session, that coal is here to stay. And why are we saying so? There are 4 reasons to it. The first thing is the way coal has been, the vision has been created till 2030. We are talking about a 1.5 billion ton kind of a consumption. We are talking about a coking coal requirement of 140 million ton. We are talking about energy security, of course. There are a lot of commercial miners who are getting into it. There is a lot of push on the underground mining side, which is one of the greener initiative per se. And there are few very important parameters hovering around this entire thing. When you look at India's generation mix, and this is FY22 figure, I can give you FY24 figure, which is around 73%. So 73% of this is coming from coal power stations. Whereas some of the other contributors like renewable, which is 16%, and hydro and nuclear, which is around 14%, and others. So if you talk about just coal-based generation in terms of power in the country, this number is supposed to come down. This will come down to around 62%. This is the kind of prediction which has multiple analysts have this kind of prediction. But the major point which is there is if it comes down to 62%, are our overall number going to go down? No. The overall number are going to go up. The share is going to come down, but the overall numbers are going to go up. That is how we typically look at it. So what does that mean? That means there are a few key imperatives. One thing is, of course, around the non-essential import reduction. We had multiple discussions on that. I'll not touch on that. The second is capacity addition in the HEMM manufacturing. The third is novel use of coal and RE diversification, I will say. That is definitely one of the focus area which I'll try to stress upon. The other is digital technology adoption. The boost in commercial mining is a consequence. I'll put it that way. So these are the 2 things which for me is something which is very important and something which all of us should pay some attention. Well, this is something which is again as per the energy transition goes, and I'll try to explain what exactly is this. This is talking about million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent which is there in the country. As per the stated policy scenarios, we are talking about steps which is saying that around 2590 is the kind of number which is there, and it is expected to go up to 3769 by 2040 say. But there are sustainable development scenarios, and if you see the contribution of, it's basically reduction. The bottom line is the reduction. If you see the contribution of reduction, you can see that efficiency and renewable is going to play the major role here. What does that mean? That means that there are a lot of push on the renewable side. But again the question comes, are we matured enough in terms of all these clean technologies which we are talking about? The factor is we are at a nascent stage. How? First point, when we are talking about solar generation, we see that there is the reliability, the framework which you can see here is reliability, affordability and green or cleaner initiative. So we see that it's reliable, definitely it's reliable. Whether it's affordable, of course it is affordable. The rates have come down drastically. It's a greener initiative. But the overall focus, when we talk about the other areas like EVs, are we there in terms of reliability and affordability? It is somewhere still a question. Greener, of course, it's a greener initiative. Battery storage, Dr. Tiwari he was mentioning about a lot of interesting point. The fact is, we are still not a lithium-ion battery producer as a country, and there are a lot of push which are required. There are definitely PLI which are released. There are a lot of push from the government side, policies are changing, that's also coming up. As far as offshore and onshore wind is concerned, still we are talking about a segment where the capacity utilization is pretty low. We are talking about somewhere like 18% of capacity utilization. So may not be a sector to rely upon. And finally would be like hydrogen. So we are struggling with the cost, because the overall green hydrogen cost is almost 1/3 of what we are producing as a gray hydrogen. The other parameter which is again very important and something which all of us should look at is how this is geographically or strategically distributed. Well, the gray highlighted portion, which is major coal producing regions, they are in the typically eastern to central part of India. Whereas when you look at the major RE development areas in our country, and of course the other downstream side as well, they are slightly pushed towards the western side of India. So what does that exactly mean? That means that this transition which is going to happen is also going to create a lot of impact for the local communities. And how are these local communities are getting addressed? The answer would be just transition. And that is something which is again need of the hour. Because it's not only one kind of a skill which we have, but it's also about how do we de-learn and relearn new things. How do we try to address some of these points which are there as the upcoming content, upcoming topics. How do we get into that? So this is one thing which the entire world is talking about. The miners today may not be the miners for tomorrow. There is a different skill set which is required, whether it's digital, whether it is renewable, whether it is any other kind of initiative. Well, taking from that particular point, the other point which is also coming in mind is what we are talking about, the importance of coal for the future as energy in India. There are a lot of efforts which are there from multiple organizations in India, globally, in order to make this entire thing cleaner, entire coal industry cleaner. And the subject coal being cleaner is not exactly like the concept is reducing the overall carbon emission in this entire gamut of, or in this entire ecosystem. So what are these kind of initiatives? One thing is definitely the power producer, who are basically the main consumer of this coal, they are increasing their efficiency. And just to give you a thumb rule, 1% rise in their efficiency results in a 2.5% reduction in carbon dioxide equivalent. So this is a real initiative which has to be taken up. NTPC, NLC, they are collaborating with UP Rajya Urja Utpadan. So that is NUPPL. So this kind of organizations, they are already trying to push a lot of things in terms of efficiency. Coal gasification, I don't need to stretch much on that because there are a lot of discussions which have already happened. See, there is a vision of 100 million tons of coal gasification in the country. We are still struggling, to be very frank. But yes, there are a lot of initiatives which are coming up. Mr. Jha mentioned about MCL coming out with a very important initiative in the form of a JV and ultimately gasifying this coal and converting it into explosive and consuming it, a complete circularity, which is a very strategic initiative. Similar kind of initiatives are there in JSPL. JSPL is basically using in DRI sector. Washing of coal is another very important area, because while we are talking about washing of coal, we are again talking about something which is a cleaner initiative. Coal India, SAIL, Tata Steel, they do have their setup, and definitely this is one thing which is having a future as we look at. So the third is, the fifth is, I would say, CCUS. See, while we talk about CCUS, we are also talking about CCUS tax credit changes, which is in line with 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. So the overall thing which is coming up is that there is definitely one tremendous push towards CCUS, and this push has to come from the technology providers, those who are available globally. Air Products, I remember Air Products pretty well. So there are multiple such examples. And the last is for miners, reducing scope 1 emissions for mining operations. There are a lot of push in terms of using the LNG based dumpers, lot of push. I think some of the speakers also mentioned about how in the mining setup they are looking for cleaner initiative. They're talking about vehicles in the mining operation with hydrogen fuel cell. Are we talking about sourcing electricity in the mining setup from renewable sources? All these are going to clusterize into something which is going to give us the result of a future in coal sector which is clean. There are several government initiatives. I'll not go into details, but National Green Hydrogen Mission, promotion of solar energy, coal gasification. There are a lot of push towards private participation, FDIs, in this segment. And last is there are specific initiatives by the coal miners today. Coal India is targeting to be net zero with 3 gigawatts of kind of a target of solar setup. NLC is getting in, they have already installed 1431 megawatts of renewable energy capacity. They are still trying to further enhance that. SCCL, they do have a capacity of 300 and then trying to look at additional capacity. So there are a lot of push which is there in the market. So all in all, what is the most important point is that there are some potential strategies for coal sector to look at, and I'll try to summarize in the form of A, it is technological upgradation. I don't need to elaborate that, but technology is something which is the future. And people talk about digital is the future. I actually don't believe that. I believe that today we have already witnessed this digital transformation. Over the last 20 years, that's what we are witnessing. We are using mobile phones. We never imagined that 20 years back. What mobile can do, they can eliminate all other kind of transportations or all other kind of communications which we have. So there are a lot of things which are already happening in the market. How do we leverage that is the question. Second, I already touched upon reskilling of workforce. I already talked about just transition, but the important is just transition requires funding. Just transition required financing. So how are we creating ways for this kind of initiative of just transition is also something which is very important for us. And the last is waste utilization. There are a lot of push towards waste utilization as well, and a lot of R&D. I think in the morning, additional secretary, she was mentioning about lot of push towards R&D, and she was requesting all of us that we should really keep some budget for R&D in our wherever setup which we have. But the point is that how do we increase that capability is going to be the biggest question. While we talk about digital has a lot of transformational capabilities. We talk about end-to-end transparency. Ultimately is going to push that one factor which we were talking about as efficiency. So are we addressing efficiency? That's going to be the main question here. So there are multiple use cases. I will not go deep into it, looking at the paucity of time, but some of these are definitely going to make coal sector efficient and cleaner. That's the overall idea. And the main question is, why are we paying attention now? Why should we pay attention now? Because this particular graph shows that where is coal India in terms, coal sector, while we talk about mining sector, in terms of the overall gamut of things, while we're comparing it with the other segment. We see that the rate of adaptability in coal industry or mining industry per se is not as much as some of the sectors like telecom, like finance, like banking sector, all the sectors which we are talking about, even education today, things have gone virtual. But are we talking about the same thing for mining? The answer may be no. But the fact is that if it's no, then we need to kind of push it. We need to kind of find use cases which are more relevant for us. So that's the overall idea. Asset cyber security, remote operation centers. We are talking about remote operation centers. That's also going to be a very important parameter to look at. Smart sensors. So they're all list of initiatives and the kind of value they can create for the industry. So that is how we typically look at, and the rate of penetration is of course the big question here. With all this thought process, I'll try to mention or rather keep these few questions for all of us to ponder upon. The first is, will coal remain the dominant source of energy for next couple of decades? At least it is sure that for the next decade it is going to be there, but what's going to be the trend after that is the main question. The second is, how do we utilize this startup ecosystem for cleaner coal ecosystem? And when we say startups, we were talking about IITs, we were talking about financial institutions, we were talking about young mind getting into this. There are a lot of things to cross leverage. So that aspect, how do we get into that? The third is what we what can be the incentives and policies to promote production of greener coal. We feel it is the need of the hour, but how do we incentivize it? Is a question which probably from this platform will go to interministries, multiple stakeholders, policymakers. That how do we incentivize this is also going to be a main point to ponder upon. CCUS, I already discussed about that. And the last point which I would like to mention here is, how do we prioritize digitalization in coal sector and collaboration opportunities? With this thought process, I would like to thank all of you for patiently hearing me. I'll be available for the lunch, so whenever or wherever anybody has a question, I'll be happy to answer that. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tusharji. You have talked almost all the aspect of energy transition and transition from coal to renewables, starting from climate change to power sector decarbonization to novel use of coal with renewables. So the outcome of the talk should be the last slide, that rate of adoptability in coal mines is limited and that has to be improved. So with this, now I invite Mr. Chinmay Chadbar. He is founder, director, V-Governance Knowledge Services, and he will be talking about policy and programs related to sustainability in coal sector.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible till the last bench. Yeah, my name is Chinmay, and I lead V-Governance. V-Governance is a think, learn, do tank, which is trying to strengthen the governance processes, governance mechanisms in the country and beyond. And I'm here to talk about the issues which are from the other side and not from the coal industry. In fact, I think all the members of this panels are not from coal industry, and they're going to talk about the other issues as well. But these issues are very, very relevant. We talked about a lot of problems. First of all, the economic expansion and the need for the energy security, along balancing that with the social transition, just transition, at the same time attracting technology, getting technology, developing technology, trying technology, getting finance from international arena. At the same time maintaining the image of being a pro-people, pro-planet country, having those sustainable practices and governance mechanisms in place. So, and these topics, these initiatives can also address some of the challenges highlighted by other previous speakers, which were about the LRR issues, for example, the challenges, when you are trying to create the harmony with the community living around the coal plants or power plants. So what are some of these initiatives, or what are some of these policies, or even, let's say, thought processes, which can maybe help us down the line over the period of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And what are the options available, and how do we evaluate those options, and then we decide our pathway, whether we are in industry, we are government, local government, state government, an NGO, or a knowledge service provider like us. So with that, I will begin my presentation. So it is on policy and programs for sustainability in coal sector. A lot of aspects are already touched upon, but to even create the background for my own story, I would like to retouch them. First of all, thank you so much, ICC, for providing us with this opportunity, and for to all of you for being patient and sparing your time to listen to us. So we know that China is the dominant player in the production. India next, and then Indonesia, US, Australia, Russia. At the same time, in consumption also, China is the biggest consumer. It consumes almost 56% of the global coal, 92% of the joules produced globally. India is second to that, a distant second. So we are not actually second. We are maybe 6, 7. There are slots empty in between, and our consumption is around 13% only, which is going to expand as discussed in the earlier presentations as well. So in terms of exports also, we know the quality of coal, the standards that we maintain have a larger impact on whether we are able to export the coal or not. At the same time, it's also about the self-reliance and our own energy security. So there are multiple challenges and issues which stop us from becoming an export-oriented country. If you look at the market value, there is a sudden change after 2021. Although we are talking about just transition, shifting to renewable sources, we are talking about the net zero, everything, but still the value, the financial value of coal assets are increasing, and actually they have jumped after 2021. So we can understand the requirement of energy and how everybody was emphasizing that the coal is actually not moving away from the picture, not moving away from our life. Okay, which means all the issues of environment, economic, social are also going to stay here, and we are bound to then solve these challenges and problems and not look away from those challenges. So I'll shift to some of the applications. Most of us know about the pre-combustion, combustion, and post-combustion applications of coal. But there are also other applications which are producing synthetic fuels or blue hydrogen production, which is producing the hydrogen at 1/3 cost of the green hydrogen. Then also extracting advanced materials like graphene, and it is also useful in waste management. It has all the alternative uses as fuel, coal to gas, coal to liquid. It is also used as for reclamation purposes, and some of the critical minerals which are very important for just transition, for transitioning to renewable energy sources or net zero. These minerals are also available, although the proportion vary depending upon the country and the region and context, but still that is also the opportunity available. And this is also the reason why coal is not going to move away, and coal's value is also not going to go down very soon. Okay. But then why are we talking about sustainability in coal? Because we know that the sustainability can address multiple challenges across the different domains, which are environmental, economic, social. Most importantly, the other three domains, which are governance, business, and physical and transition risk. As I was mentioning, if you want to attract finance, if you want to attract technology, if you want to create a larger market base, you need the reputation. And one of the biggest thing that sustainability brings in today's global geopolitics or market scenario, that it can give you the brand name, it can give you the reputation. So to go ahead with that, there are only 4 or 5 major principles on which the sustainability is hanging. One is the environmental stewardship, wherever the coal mines are located, we look at the impact on land, on pollution, on people. Second is the pollution emission reduction across the coal usage applications. So of course, coal mining is one, but the coal combustion is the major producer of emissions. The third is the resource efficiency. Fourth is community welfare, which we are going to talk about. And the last one is the stakeholder engagement. All the stakeholders of international arena, how we are going to engage them in our journey for the sustainability of coal in India. If you look at the global policy shifts for sustainable coal sector, so mainly it's around carbon pricing. Of course, they are going to increase the cost of coal, cost of electricity production, which will also have an impact on import-export dynamics. Second is the emission regulations, which may even restrict a lot of our other products if they are produced through the routes which are having high emission standards. Then those companies will not be considered sustainable companies or sustainable manufacturers, and that might also block our exports. Okay, this is beyond coal, this is beyond mining and metals. I'm talking about the other sectors. Then there are also subsidy shifts. Of course, the subsidies are taken away right now from coal-based manufacturing and power production. There are also renewable mandates. We talked about the target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. Then clean coal incentives, which are yet to be come up. Then there are also support systems required for energy transition. Previous presentation talked about research and development funding for specific projects. Then strengthening the reporting standards or even improving the measurement capabilities so that we can report and also develop incremental indigenous solutions around the challenges that we are talking about. and also the international agreements, which will also have a larger impact on import-export dynamics, also on our reputation.
Yes. Chinmay, please
Yeah,
limit your talk next 2 minutes.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, if you look at ESG issues in coal mining, so it's around they are around efficiency improvements, hazard elimination, substitution of some of the byproducts of coal. They are about waste minimization, recycling of the byproducts of coal, electrification of coal mining and the downstream value chain. Also about the renewable energy use. There are multiple options which already we talked about. And there are also AI-based applications which improve the efficiency and then automation. And one of the biggest game changer could be the methane abatement. If you look at, there are a number of parameters which are being tracked under sustainability reporting, which I will not go into deeply because because we are from industry and we would be knowing most of them. If you look at, so digitalization and technology already covered in the previous presentation. These are some of the initiatives by Ministry of Coal in India, which are about the afforestation, air quality management, mine water management, OB utilization, ecotourism, energy efficiency, and policy and education. A lot of these initiatives have taken place. They are also very good initiatives, but if you look at the proportion of implementation, it is around 1% only. So out of, let's say, 3,500 locations, there are only 35 locations in which these initiatives exist. So we are yet to complete or even try out another 99%, which is a much, much bigger challenge. There are also some of the other initiatives, governance-related initiatives, so Sustainable Development Cell, Digital Mining Surveillance System, District Mineral Fund, which is also trying to establish harmony, where mining companies and even local government agencies are trying to create the balance between environment, social, and the economics. Then there are also initiatives around circular economy. One major program is landscape restoration, which is still not happening in the country at all, although there are laws for mine closure and other things, but we are not looking at, or maybe we are not emphasizing it deeply enough. If you look at the issue of landscape restoration, it should consider all the deficits created because of our activities, mining or any other industrial activities. We have to address all the deficits together. So in terms of SDGs, there are 8 to 10 SDGs which need to be targeted. In terms of indicators, there are 20-25 indicators which need to be targeted. Then only we are able to resolve those deficits, and then we are able to create. So the just transition, for example, in case of Chhattisgarh, 30% of the revenue comes from mining. Now once after 30-40 years the mining reduces, you have to plan for those 30% revenues. At the same time, the entire employee base, which is based in just mining, how you are going to employ them, and how we are going to diversify their income, their livelihoods. So these are also some of the issues that the industry will have to think about. Okay, industry, government, and other stakeholders, they have to come together and deal with them. There are many policies within NITI Aayog and outside which talked about the efficiency, mineral efficiency, methane abatement, and other solutions. But the most important part, as I mentioned, is that which is missing from the Indian context and which will be extreme. So there are only 3 things we are looking at. One is the decarbonization, so renewable energy, which is not in our hand completely because we have to rely on technology. Finance we might be able to still garner, but technology is yet to come. Okay. Now the second part, which is the other side, which is dealing with the society, with the people, and restoring those landscapes which are disturbed by our activities, because that is also a bigger chunk. When there will be green certificates, green standards for our products, even these we will be evaluated on these parameters as well, which is in our hand, which is right now possible. There is no technology needed, there is just the will needed. And there are initiatives, some initiatives through CSR and through DMFs, which are tried out. But we can see that the efforts are fragmented for a lot of issues. First of all, the prioritization is towards the infrastructure creation in rural areas, and instead of, you know, there is also another thing which we see, that mine closure becomes an additional activity after the closure of mine, whereas the mechanism or the policy could be to in fact start from beginning, because we know that how much we are going to actually destroy in that landscape. So we can start from beginning, plan each and every step, how we are going to rebuild the landscape, how we are going to not destroy the landscape, all the other things. There are different parameters which can be tracked down. Special purpose vehicles can be made, which can be financed, and there is a global finance available in impact finance, through foundations, even governments. The finance that is coming for carbon offsets is also good enough to, at least 50%, to restore 50% of the landscape in these areas, which will also help us diversify the livelihoods of locals, which will resolve our issues around water, on local level pollution, air pollution. So all this together, I think, which gives us, so we are given with three options. One is the technology based costly option. There is also another without technology and with very low cost. At least we can start doing this until the transition actually happens, until we have the technology in maybe 2030, 40, 50. So this is one major, I think, part where industry and government has to, they have to look at how we are going to organize ourselves around this. So what we'll need is the strong measurement capabilities to substantiate cost benefits of all these potential options. We have to also localize the data and to bring in indigenous incremental innovations. We have to develop platforms where we can have the cooperation from all the stakeholders, co-creation from all the stakeholders. We can develop, as I mentioned, special purpose vehicles. We can develop special funds for these things, where the international agencies, where the knowledge service providers can come forward to provide the technical assistance and expertise needed for that conflict resolution between people, planet, and the industry. So I think with that, I would like to close this. But as I mentioned, that the just transition is not just about technology, but it's also about our own efforts around how we are going to organize ourselves around governance. So thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Chinmayji. So you have talked about various policies and progress related to sustainability in coal sector. The crux of the talk was around the initiatives like energy efficiency, renewable energy, just transition and land restoration, these initiatives. But the progress and implementation in these initiatives are limited. So the industry as a whole needs to implement environment and governance and sustainability laws and increase the pace of the these initiatives and implementation pace of these initiatives. So thank you very much. Now, Navneet, the last speaker between you and lunch. So I'll request him to shorten his presentation. So every transition have some winners and some losers. So like this, when we talk about the coal transition, it will also have some winners and some losers. And we should make sure that the losers should be empowered so that they are not left alone. And for this, Skill Council plays a major role. So I request Navneet to talk about the initiatives of Skill Council in this regard. Thank you.
चेक करो। हाँ यार
So a very good afternoon to everyone. I am Navneet Kumar. Basically, I'm a mining engineer and currently serving as CEO for Skill Council for Mining Sector. A lot of people since morning have shared their experience, including the ministry itself. We had a great learning day, and for that, I'd like to thank ICC for organizing this summit and also having me here. A lot of technical presentations have happened there. I would like to add a personal touch here. With coal and coal mining, my experience is my entire life. I was born in a coal belt, and my birthplace is surrounded by 3 coal mines and 2 coal washeries. Privileged to be a part of a town that was Asia's first thermal power plant. My father was working there. Then my entire BTech mining happened in the Jharia coal belt. I did my initial training at Southeastern Coalfield, Korba, then Singareni coalfield. So I thought I had enough of coal in my life. I decided to join the metal sector. Then I joined the metal sector, started there. Then somehow I joined the scaling part, and again I got to do a project at Singrauli Northern Coalfields. Then I also had a survey of Ib Valley and Talcher Valley. So in the morning, Jha sir was inviting us to Talcher. So sir, I have been there. So again, I am coming next week. I also did my project in coal bed methane with Simfer at an ONGC extraction site. So it's a lot of indirect experience, but the topic that we are discussing today is related to the transition, means our topic, our panel's topic is the transition and looking for alternate sources of energy. At the same time, what sustainable can we do of the existing situation? As per my experience, when I was in my town, we did not feel it, but when I left my town and met other people across the nation, the kind of energy security that we had in the town, because coal was there and a power plant, thermal power plant was there, I got to know that a lot of other of my friends were not having that kind of security. Still, Tushar sir showed that what is our dependency on coal for energy, and we cannot escape the fact that anytime soon we are not going to replace it completely. We can focus on changing the transition, increasing other dependencies, and finding sustainable ways for the next decade or 2 decades, and at the same time finding alternative ways to use the resource, the coal that we are having in and having so much potential. A lot of mining companies have already come forward for this transition. They have started working on the solars and other kind of alternative energy sources, like Mahanadi also showed it. We are depending almost 80% on coal, oil and solid biomass. The biometrics were shown, the metrics were shown by Tushar sir in his presentation. We also discussed about just transition. So once my presentation is there, so let's start with it. Can I have the remote? Thank you. So just a little brief about my organization. So we have been set up by NSDC under Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and we are a single body in India for the authorized by ministry for skilling and certification of mining workforce in India. We are a Section 8 non-profit company, and we are regulated by National Council for Vocational Education and Training. This is our ecosystem where we are connected. We are working in a PPP mode where government and industry both are a major player, and including CSIR as a research wing and IITS Ahmedabad from the academics. This is the current governing board. So Pankaj Satija sir was there in the morning. He is also guiding us as our chairman. Major companies from the mining industry are there. At the same time, the government is there for the policy part. So both Ministry of Mines and Ministry of Coal are aligned ministry there. So we did a skill gap study with PwC, and this is the measured demand till 2025 that we had estimated. Of course, when we had conducted the study, the focus was not there on a lot of transition. So few of the parts are missing there, but still we can say the maximum demand is within the mining operations. Among that, you might not be knowing the NSQF level, I will cover it in a later stage. But mostly the operators part and the supervisors part are going to play a major role. Yes, the kind of skills that the supervisors are having as of day, they needs to be updated and reskilled or upskilled along with in coordination with the national education policy. So I will cover that also in the coming slides. Excuse me at the end. This is the different presentation. वही है, there it is. अब दे दो, मैं ओरेट कर देता हूँ. हाँ, अभी लगा सकते हैं.
वहीं से लगाना पड़ेगा, यहाँ से या कॉपी करना पड़ेगा.
अब यहाँ से लगा दो. So for the time being, when my presentation is about to come on the screen, so a lot of people talk about the DMF fund. Even in the morning there was a discussion. We are doing projects under DMF, and we have created an ecosystem where industry is creating the demand and DMF is paying the funds. So even for just transition, we can have a request with the ministry that any coal bearing areas where transition is required or where the mines are about to get closed, funds can be allocated under that purpose also. Already environment is a priority sector under the DMF fund allocation rules, but majorly personally I have not seen a lot of projects happening under that. So just transition and upskilling and reskilling part for the existing manpower and the future manpower of the coal bearing areas can be funded by the DMF. What we are covering the scaling part in DMF is mostly the operations part as of now, but now we are shifting our focus to the higher education qualifications also, who will become responsible for the reclamation of mines, the closure of mines, the sustainable mining practices, controlling of pollution and environmental statistics. There we have also submitted our submission to Ministry of Mines. They are upcoming with a report regarding greening of mines, and a lot of major focus is there on skill development and new qualifications. Ministry of Steel has just come up with their report on this on the greening of steel sector. There also a lot of skilling focus has been submitted. Okay, so this is the major, this is a very generic portion where we understand how the coal or any mining activity, especially coal, affects our life. Health effects, we all know. I have been to the area all my life, so I know what kind of effects the general population gets. So we have been talking about transition and dependency on renewable energy because we have made a commitment at COP26 regarding net zero and this Panchamrit. The key programs that is happening as of now for the transition is happening in Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, National Clean Energy Fund, National Solar Mission, Wind Energy Mission, and a lot of subsidies are also coming in picture. The renewable energy targets that we have taken is 500 gigawatt by 2030, and we can already see one of our sister organization is in the renewable sector. It's called Green. It's Skill Council for Green Jobs. So they are working a lot in the solar targets. There is Surya Mitra scheme was also under that renewable energy. So India has also announced the target of 50% installed power generation capacity from non-fossil energy sources by 2030, raising the existing target of 40%, which has already been almost achieved. In the reforms in the transport sector also needs to be done, because a lot of pollution is created in the transport, in the coal transport. But overall transportation, if we talk about, the faster adoption and manufacturing of EV vehicles will be a game changer. And we have already moved to BS6 in 2020, that is a added step. India's support to EVs is happening at a very fast pace, but we should talk about the EVs in the mining sector. So Coal India is taking the lead step. I think last year BEML was there. Northern Coalfields Limited is utilizing electric dumpers in their mines. So the technologies that needs to be involved is clean coal technologies, coal gasification and liquefaction that we have been discussing since morning, and carbon capture and storage. On the reclamation part, many Coal India subsidiaries are already working. NLCIL has done a very beautiful job in the last so many years on reclamation, and they have also increased the efficiency. They have also added the part of ecotourism in their own coal mining areas. So the issues in smooth transition to renewables will be is land with renewable energy potential, but as we are seeing in the news is that a lot of difficulties are not existing in the land acquiring and land clearance challenges. For coal-powered companies, the transition from coal to non-fossil fuel-based power generation transportation is relatively easier for the companies operating in the services sector, and they have already started working on this field. We need to focus more on the skilled labor for EV manufacturing. So we are also creating qualifications to cover that. That will be aligned with national skill qualification frameworks. So the opportunities will be in job creation, of course, economic growth will be there. Job creation will be new job creation. At the same time, existing job roles will get changed and updated. What we have been doing for last so many years, even the lawyers have to change, even the reclamation engineers have to change their roles. So we have discussed these things, so I will move forward.
Navneet ji, please.
I will just take 2 minutes. So in the digitization trend, big data and analytics, optimizing operations and reducing downtime will be a game changer. Internet of Things, IoT is helping a lot. AI is already in the Indian mining sector. ISM Dhanbad has taken the lead. Texmin is doing a beautiful job there. So what we can do, what we can play. We cannot just decide to close any mines. The employment elasticity of mining sector is 0.52. We are just next to construction sector. So for every 1% change in sectoral GDP from the mining sector, we create 13 times more jobs than agriculture and 10 times more job than I think services sector. So a lot of people are depending on our sector. We have to take benefit of this, and we have to utilize the existing manpower for any transition that we are going to target. These are the few job roles that we have submitted to the ministry that we are working upon, and these qualifications are aligned with NSQF. So waste management supervisor, mine technician, water and tailing, because a lot of resources are getting lost to the rivers. Sustainable mining specialist, biodiversity specialist, AI-driven equipment maintenance specialist, AI-powered waste management specialist, and HMM EV maintenance. These are few of them. Niti Aayog report has also focused on livelihoods, on just transition, and any strategy for promoting just transition must address this challenge and include development of alternate options for employment, such as retraining and reskilling of affected population. We have been working for PAPs in the mining coal belts, but now we are also shifting the focus to what is actually required by the industry. And even the Ministry of Skill Development is 100% funding any skilling initiative that industry needs to participate in. These are the job roles that will be coming in the upcoming report of Ministry of Mines. So what I have mentioned here is not the generic skill sets that these people are having. I have only mentioned those points that are the focused new skill sets that needs to be acquired by these people. Mine Planner is working for the last so many decades in India. The new focus should be optimization of mine design and minimal ecological disruption and environmental impact assessment skills. If you choose any of this, like data scientists are existing in the IT sector and other sectors also, but what we need from data scientists in coal mining companies is collection and analysis for environmental monitoring, predictive modeling for resource management, application of big data and IoT in mining operation, and through data-driven insights. Like renewable energy specialist needs to be there in the mining companies now, especially in coal mining, who can work on the integration of microgrids and off-grid solutions. These are few more. what is our mandate, that we need to align all the existing skills of mining sector along with any upcoming skills with national skill qualification framework that is existing since 2013, updated in last year, with National Education Policy 2020, National Higher Education Qualification Framework, and Academic Bank of Credits and APAR ID. So any person would have gone through a lot of corporate training, but we did not get any credits. Now any training has to be aligned with, even the college training, school training, vocational training has to be aligned with NSQF and NHEQF, where whatever the hours of training any person does, any person, a worker or a PhD, any person does, they will get credit for every 30 hours. And once you have accumulated enough, you can convert these credits into degrees, diplomas, whatever you qualify for. These APAR ID will be linked with the Aadhaar card, and any training that you do on which the courses are aligned with NSQF and NEP, your credits will be getting stored in your APAR ID. So this will be a game changer where people will get interested by themselves that they are interested for any kind of training the corporate is planning for them. So I already showed in the previous PPT these things. These are the DMF funds availability and amount expenditure in these major 11 states. So whatever we discuss in this panel also, the DMF fund can be utilized for transition, just transition, and a lot of reskilling, upskilling part, along with any environmental upgradation that we need to do in the mining sector. You see, in skilling, only 0.03% has been sent. Now, welfare of women and children are also there in the priority sector. And these are the state-wise fund status as of May 2024. So around 95,000 crore was still there, lying idle. It's just the industry needs to come forward and take benefit of this, because all the funds have been submitted only by the mining industries as a part of their own royalty. So I will end here, and I again thank ICC for having me here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Navneet ji, for sharing the initiatives by Skill Council in mining sector. So yeah, includes.
I would like to thank all the speakers of this session. Now I would request Dr. Tiwari to kindly hand over a small token of appreciation to all our speakers. The conference has come to an end, and we'll close the session now and request everyone to proceed for lunch. Once again, I would like to thank all the participants, speakers, our support sponsors, companies, and friends from media. And we look forward to see you again in the next edition of this Coal Summit next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much for arranging this. How are you? I'm good. How are you? Good, good.